Welcome to the deep dive.
Yeah.
Today, we're jumping straight into something really complex, often pretty controversial. Immigration raids in California.
That's right.
We've got your sources here.
Yeah.
And well, our goal is to cut through the noise, pull out the key stuff.
Yeah, we're digging into the material you sent over, trying to make sense of this real tension, between federal enforcement and how California pushes back with its own protections.
Exactly. So the mission today,
Mm-hmm.
understand what these raids actually are, why California is such a hotspot for this, the real-world impact, and what the legal and community response look like. We want you to walk away really understanding this critical issue fast.
Okay, let's do it.
So, starting with the basics, baby, what exactly are immigration raids based on what we're seeing in the sources?
Right, so fundamentally, they're targeted enforcement actions. Usually it's U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement,
CE by CE.
Their goal is finding, detaining, and ultimately deporting people who are violating immigration laws.
And where did these happen? Is it just workplaces?
No, that's the thing. It's much broader. Workplaces, yes, but also homes, sometimes just out on the street, even transit stations sometimes. The sources mention quite a range.
And that scope, that must feel especially intense in California. Why is California so central to this whole issue?
Well, yeah, it's ground zero in a lot of ways. California has more immigrants than any other state, like over 27% of the population foreign-born, last I checked for 2024.
Wow, over a quarter.
Yeah, and millions more first-gen Americans. It's a huge economic and cultural hub for immigrants. You see folks in agriculture, hospitality, tech, healthcare, construction, everywhere.
So that makes it a major focus for enforcement, naturally.
Exactly. But it also makes it a major battleground for immigrant rights because the state itself has taken a very different approach.
Okay, let's get into that. The federal-state divide. This is where it gets really interesting, right? This clash.
Definitely. California has these pretty progressive policies specifically designed to limit how much state and local agencies cooperate with federal immigration enforcement.
Can you break down some of those specific laws? The sources mentioned a few key ones.
Sure. So a big one is SB 54. That's the California Values Act from 2017. Basically, it stops state and local cops from using their resources just for immigration enforcement.
Okay, so they can't act solely as immigration agents.
Right. Then there's AB 450, the Immigrant Worker Protection Act. This one tells employers they can't voluntarily let ICE into non-public parts of a workplace without a judicial warrant.
Protecting worker spaces, essentially.
And another one, the Truth Act from 2016, that requires local law enforcement to tell detained immigrants about their rights before ICE gets to interview them.
So, multiple layers of state-level pushback.
Yeah, it's a deliberate strategy, a kind of legal firewall.
And how does the federal government see this? Especially administrations wanting stricter enforcement.
Well, they criticize California heavily. You hear the term sanctuary state a lot.
Right, sanctuary state. What does that actually mean in practice for California's policies, beyond just, not helping ICE as much?
Good question. It generally means the state or local government limits cooperation. Yeah. So maybe not detaining someone for ICE without a warrant or limiting info sharing. The idea from California's perspective is often about building trust with immigrant communities so people feel safe reporting crimes, accessing services, for overall public safety.
But that stance then leads to more conflict.
Yeah, it often leads to federal agencies feeling they have to operate more independently. So you see more unannounced raids, often early in the morning, hitting homes or workplaces directly, kind of bypassing those local channels.
Okay, so let's picture this playing out. What do these raids actually look like on the ground? What tactics are used?
The sources describe a few common scenarios. Home raids, agents showing up at someone's house, often super early, looking for specific people with deportation orders.
Early morning, okay.
Then workplace raids, targeting businesses they suspect hire undocumented workers. These can result in, large numbers of people being detained at once.
Big disruptions.
Huge. And then there's something called collateral arrests. This is when ICE is there for one person, but they end up arresting other people they encounter who don't have papers, even if they weren't the initial target.
Ah, so it sweeps up others too.
Exactly. And finally, they mention operations in public spaces, surveillance, or arrests happening at places like bus stations, sometimes near courts or hospitals, which causes a lot of fear.
And you mentioned warrants earlier. There's a critical detail in the sources about the type of warrant ICE often uses, right? something that adds to the fear.
Yes, absolutely crucial. It's the difference between a judicial warrant and an administrative warrant.
Explain that.
Okay, so a judicial warrant is signed by a judge. It's based on probable cause, gives legal authority to search or arrest, and you pretty much have to comply.
Got it. Judge's order.
But an administrative warrant, that's issued internally by an agency like ICE. It doesn't come from a court.
So it doesn't have the same legal force.
Legally, no. It doesn't compel you to open your door or consent to a search of your home. An agent might show it, but you're generally not legally required to comply just based on that administrative warrant alone.
But people might not know that distinction in the moment.
Exactly. And that uncertainty, that confusion is a major source of fear. People might comply when they don't legally have to.
Which brings us to the human impact.
Yeah.
It's stark. The sources share some direct quotes.
Yeah, they're tough to read. Things like Maria from Fresno in 2020. We woke up to ICE pounding on our door. My husband was taken in front of our kids. We haven't heard from him in a week.
Devastating. And Jose in Modesto, fearing going to a clinic.
I was afraid to go to the clinic when my child was sick. I thought ICE might be waiting outside.
When you read things like that, what's the bigger picture effect? It's not just the person arrested, is it?
Not at all. Slight pause. It sends ripples of fear through the whole community. It's about family separation, kids left terrified, the trauma. It affects mental health deeply, especially for children.
And the practical side, like losing income.
Oh, definitely. Economic hardship is huge. If the breadwinner is detained, families can suddenly have no income, no way to pay rent or buy food. And then there's this silencing effect. People become too scared to report crimes, even domestic abuse, for fear of deportation.
So it drives people further underground.
Completely. You see this pattern of hypervigilance, people avoiding schools, hospitals, grocery stores, whole neighborhoods kind of shutting down after a big raid. It's a pervasive fear.
Facing that kind of impact, what are the legal challenges? Are rights groups pushing back?
Oh, absolutely. Groups like the ACLU, the Immigrant Legal Resource Center, lots of local organizations, they argue these raids often ignore basic legal protections.
Like the Fourth Amendment. Unreasonable search and seizure.
Exactly. They question if entering homes without a judicial warrant violates the Constitution. They ask if people are getting due process, access to lawyers, fair treatment.
Is there a concern people are deported too quickly?
A major concern. The argument is that many are deported without ever seeing a judge, without having their case, like a potential asylum claim, properly heard. It raises fundamental questions about fairness.
So beyond the courts, how are communities and the state responding on the ground? What are they doing?
You see a lot of proactive organizing, things like rapid response networks.
What are those?
They're like volunteer teams, basically. They get alerts about raids happening and go to the scene to observe, document what's going on, offer support, connect people with lawyers.
Wow, real-time community defense.
Yeah. And huge Know Your Rights campaigns, workshops, flyers, social media, just educating people about what to do if ICC comes to their door, like the warrant issue we talked about.
Empowering people with information.
Precisely. Plus, there's a lot of legal aid and deportation defense work, nonprofits, pro bono lawyers trying to represent people in immigration court.
And the whole sanctuary city concept plays into this too.
Definitely. Cities like LA, San Francisco, Oakland declaring themselves sanctuary jurisdictions means they have policies limiting local police cooperation with ICE. It's another layer of that state and local resistance.
And hasn't the state government itself taken action sometimes?
Yes. California's Attorney General has actually investigated employers and landlords accused of unlawfully collaborating with ICE, like letting them in without proper warrants when state law like AB 450 might prohibit it, reinforcing the state's stance.
Okay, so we have this constant back and forth, federal action, state resistance, community action. How effective are these raids, really? Federal officials say they're necessary.
They do. They justify them as necessary for removing people with criminal records or final deportation orders. That's the official rationale.
But the sources seem to show a lot of criticism about that justification.
A lot of criticism. One major point is that many sources indicate the majority of people detained in these raids actually have no criminal history, or maybe very minor offenses.
So it contradicts the primary justification sometimes.
Often, according to critics. They argue the raids cause massive community disruption, fear, economic instability that far outweighs any supposed benefit in deterring migration.
And the argument that it pushes people further into the shadows.
Yeah, that's a big one. If people are terrified of any authority figure, they won't report crimes, they won't access health care, which can harm public health and safety for everyone. It erodes trust in law enforcement generally.
So many experts are saying there are better ways.
Yes, many policy experts cited argue that focusing on fixing the immigration system comprehensively, maybe community-based solutions, would be way more effective and humane than just aggressive enforcement tactics like raids.
Looking ahead then, this tension doesn't seem like it's going away soon. What shapes what happens next?
It really is uncertain. A lot depends on national elections. Shifts in federal policy obviously play a huge role.
New administration, new priorities.
Exactly. Then there are ongoing legal battles about ICE's powers and tactics. Those court decisions matter. And always the background noise, or maybe the main tune, is the call for comprehensive immigration reform at the federal level.
But California itself will likely keep pushing back locally.
Seems likely. You'll probably see continued state and local efforts to protect immigrant communities within the bounds of the law. California really is at the heart of this ongoing national debate. So just to sort of wrap up the core points, these immigration raids in California, they really throw this deep conflict into sharp relief, don't they? Federal goals versus state protections.
Yeah.
And while the stated aim is upholding immigration law, the reality on the ground, as the sources show, often involve trauma, families being torn apart, and these really significant legal fights. California's resistance makes it a key place to watch.
It really does. So it leaves you thinking. In a state like California, known for its diversity, its innovation, what does this ongoing, persistent resistance to federal immigration enforcement tell us, really? What does he say about how we're trying to balance national security, individual rights, and maybe even how we define community in America today?